Good afternoon. A father from Newport is preparing to hold a second funeral for his baby son after 28 years. Séan McGuire discovered just a few weeks ago that tissue was removed from his son's body during a post-mortem and kept at the Royal Gwent Hospital. The hospital originally denied carrying out the post-mortem. Gwent Healthcare NHS Trust has since apologised to the family.
It's 28 years since Brendan McGuire died, just one day after he was born. His father Séan says at the time he was pressurised into signing a form consenting to a post-mortem. 2.5 years ago, as it emerged that hospitals like Alderhay in Liverpool and the Bristol Royal Infirmary had retained huge collections of children's organs following post-mortem, Séan McGuire decided to check that nothing of his son had been kept. Gwent Healthcare Trust denied that Brendan had ever undergone a post-mortem, but almost 2.5 years later, the Trust wrote to Mr McGuire again, telling him that investigations had revealed that a post-mortem had been carried out and the tissue samples were still at the Royal Gwent.
I think, to be honest, it's quite disgusting. They've put me and my family through 2 years of so much distress. Each and every time we've heard the words Alderhay, Bristol, Birmingham, it's brought everything back to us.
Now Mr McGuire fears that other families could undergo a similar experience.
There are parents in their 70s and 80s that don't know parts of their children are still being stored. And obviously if they find out, it will still be a shock to them. Alderhay, Birmingham, Bristol, I think is just the tip of the iceberg of what health authorities are storing.
But according to the Gwent Trust, recent scandals mean they've improved investigative processes and that reporting and monitoring procedures in our hospitals are very different now. Next Thursday, the family will hold a second funeral, 28 years to the day Brendan died. They hope the ceremony will help them put the last 2 years of anguish behind them.
And Susie joins us from the Cardiff newsroom. Well, Susie, Mr McGuire says he fears this could happen to other parents. Could it?
In a way it could, Jane. If parents whose children died many years ago and who underwent post-mortem went back to a hospital and asked if tissue samples had been kept, then there is a likelihood that the answer could be yes. In the terms of organs being kept, that isn't likely because hospitals have been told to tell parents of any organs that have been kept, but the duty isn't on them to tell parents of any tissue samples.
Now, of course, since the scandals at Alderhay and Bristol, changes have been made. Does that guarantee that these things won't happen again?
It certainly should guarantee that, but of course, as we saw in Alderhay a couple of weeks ago, new organ collections are being discovered. What the hospital says, they have now improved procedures. Parents shouldn't sign post-mortem forms without knowing exactly what they're giving consent to, and that samples shouldn't be kept unless there is a very specific purpose for that.
Susie Phillips.